The Honourable Annette King.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question to the Minister of ACC. Does he stand by his statement on Radio New Zealand's Checkpoint programme 12th of August 2010, quote, "I'm not satisfied that ACC has handled the issue of counselling services for sensitive claims that well. I'm going to await the final report from the independent clinical panel before drawing final conclusions," end quote. And if so, why?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, yes I do. I have been consistently cautious of interfering in ACC's clinical decisions in this sensitive area. But given the level of concern from colleagues and the public, established an independent clinical panel to review ACC's approach. That panel is doing a very professional and thorough job.
The Honourable Annette King.
Does he now accept that he was warned by clinicians, survivors, the National Council for Women and by 3,976 people who signed a petition last October which said, quote, "By doing nothing and allowing these changes to occur unhindered, you are choosing to make recovery from horrific abuse harder for some of the most vulnerable members of this society"?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I'd also draw the members' attention to the advice from the College of GPs, and I quote what they said in November last year. "All the clinical evidence suggests that the new approach ACC is adopting will be in the best interests of the patient." Now, given that sort of advice, I've been cautious of getting involved in a clinical debate where that is not where I'm well qualified, but in response to the concern of colleagues like Chester Burrows, like Jackie Blue, like Nikki Kay, have set up an independent clinical panel and will be ensuring that the advice of that panel is taken by ACC, ensuring we provide proper care for those people that are sexually abused.
The Honourable Annette King.
Did ACC advise him that the process to change the clinical framework or clinical pathway was started under a Labour government, as he has claimed many times? If so, when?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, yes, that is the advice I've received. What happened was there was concern in the research that was commissioned in 2003 by the previous government at Massey University. And the key element, and I'm not an expert on the clinical issues, Mr Speaker, but the clinical concern in that research was that unlimited counselling was actually going to do more harm than good for sensitive claimants. I'm advised by ACC that the changes in the pathway were begun in 2008.
Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Minister, what steps has the Minister taken to try and have the issues over ACC sensitive claims addressed as quickly as possible?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, the independent clinical panel wrote to me on the 16th of July seeking an extension of time to September to enable them to provide a comprehensive report. My concern was that this delay would put back the addressing of the problems for providing for sensitive and vulnerable claimants. I agreed to the extension to mid-September, subject to them providing interim recommendations. On receiving those recommendations, I immediately wrote to the ACC board seeking the implementation of those as quickly as possible, which the ACC board has done.
The Honourable Annette King.
In light of his answer to my previous question, is he saying that ACC are not telling the truth when in less than 1 month ago, in an answer to an official information request, they said, quote, "No work was undertaken on either the clinical framework or the clinical pathway prior to 2009. It also said the clinical framework was developed by the Clinical Services Directorate in 2009, long after a Labour government had left."
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I stand.
Order.
Mr Speaker.
I apologise to the Minister. Now, I believe the member's asked a serious question, and the member's colleagues should actually listen to the answer. The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr Speaker, I stand by the advice that I have been given by ACC, and that is that the work on the clinical pathways began in 2008 prior to the change of government, and as those documents make plain, whereas Labor has tried to politicise this issue, these changes in sensitive claims have been totally driven by ACC clinicians, not by ministers, not by Cabinet, but by clinicians trying to do the very best for sensitive claimants.
Point of order, the Honourable Annette King.
To table a document from ACC dated the 30th of July 2010 that points out that no work was done on the clinical framework or clinical pathway prior to 2009, which contradicts what the Minister said.
Leavers sought to table that order. Leavers sought to table that document. Is there any objection? There is no objection. Michael Woodhouse. Point of order, the Honourable Annette King.
Speaker, the Minister said that he had quoted from official documents from ACC. I'd ask him to table.
Order. No. The Minister, I don't believe the Minister had an official document in his hand when he was answering that question. Michael Woodhouse, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. I've called Michael Woodhouse.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Supplementary to the Minister. What were the underlying concerns that ACC had that led to the changes, and has the Minister received any advice on whether those concerns were valid?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, the concern that ACC's clinicians had, backed up by comprehensive research, was that ongoing unlimited counselling of victims of sexual abuse could lead to more harm than good. The clinical panel has confirmed the validity of this research and the need for professional oversight by psychiatrists and psychologists to ensure long-term counselling is both beneficial and appropriate. I am advised by the clinical panel that where ACC erred was in requiring such an assessment for all claimants when insufficient professional support was not available, resulting in unacceptable delays in providing care. Mr. Speaker, I am confident that with the support and advice of the independent clinical panel, we can indeed improve the support that's provided for sensitive claimants.
Craig Foss, point of order.
Mr. Speaker, during that exchange and prior, the member Darren Hughes questioned if the Minister was telling the truth quite a few times, and members cannot do that. All members are honourable, and I ask that the member should reflect on that and withdraw.
A member has taken offence, and strictly the member should not imply. Is the member wanting to?
I was very careful about what I said, sir.
The member's not going to repeat what he said. I heard very clearly what the member said. Another member has taken offence. A member should not imply that another member is not telling the truth. I do ask the Honourable Darren Hughes to stand, withdraw and apologise.
I'll withdraw and apologise.
Lynne Pillay, supplementary question.
Speaker.
Order. Now look, here's the Labor front bench this occasion. I've called one of their colleagues and I expect them to show some courtesy to their own colleague. Lynne Pillay, supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Minister now require ACC to identify the estimated 2,000 people who were unable to participate in his government's ACC process because it was too traumatic? And will he offer them counselling?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Speaker, as of Monday, ACC is offering 16 counselling sessions for those people that seek the service from counsellors. They are then going to work through a final solution when the full report is available from the independent clinical panel. I would point out to members opposite that are interjecting is that there were way in excess of 2,000 claimants to ACC turned down for counselling during the time of the previous government. In fact, in 2008, half those that sought counselling when Labor was the government were turned down.
The Honourable Annette King.
When he said in the Nelson Evening Mail last week, quote, "Some days I'm in politics and I think, what the hell am I doing?" end quote, will he now accept that the victims of his bungled policy are asking the same question?
The Honourable Dr Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker. It's a pity. It's a pity the